Hello and welcome to the Color Mentor podcast. My name is Kaur Hendrikson. I'm a colorist, originally from South Africa. Now I'm based in Taiwan. On this podcast, I'm going to be talking to people who have mentored and inspired me on my color grading journey over the years. So welcome to the show. If you'd like to learn more about color grading, you can head over to my Patreon. It's called Color Mentor at patreon.com, and it includes test footage, color charts, basic skill training, all the way up to full coursework on various topics. I also offer one-on-one mentoring for those who want to refine their craft further. But without further ado, let's get on with the show. This episode, I'll be speaking to Kaur Hendrikson. He's a colorist from Tallinn, Estonia. Any of you who use DCTLs will be familiar with his name. In the last few years, he's set up a successful DCTL store, and he's constantly developing new tools for freelancers and large facilities alike. He does DCTL and Python scripting training for Blackmagic and platforms like Mixing Light, and we spoke about this and a lot more. Hi, Kaur. Great to see you face to face. Well, live in the web age. This is what we consider now as live.
Yeah. Nice to see you too.
Thanks Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really interested in chatting to people who are leading this kind of wave of new developments in color grading, especially color coding, DCTLs, new color tools and things like that. And you seem to be right at the heart of it. So I really have to speak to you. Could you maybe start off with just telling us a bit about your background and how you came to combine these two worlds of coding and interest or love of film and image creation?
Yeah, so I can't remember a time when I wasn't a fan of watching movies. My dad is responsible for that because essentially even before I was able to understand English, because I'm from Estonia, and we have our own language that is completely different from essentially everything else except Finnish, and I guess there are some roots that are in common with Hungarian. So before I was able to understand the movies, my dad was reading the subtitles. Yes, I was a slow learner at first in terms of reading. So yeah, Dad was reading everything for me. And then at some point I learned English before I was able to read fast enough in Estonian. So yeah, I've loved to watch movies for the longest time. And then in second grade, I think, so I was about 8, I started making Lego stop motion and just dabbling with Windows Movie Maker and stuff. So that was my into the movie making world. Yes, very professional. And yeah, at some point I also started. Well, I guess that was actually my first YouTube channel with the Lego stop motion. Not too many videos, but they're still up there. And then at some point I started making Minecraft YouTube videos. Yeah, I'm off that generation. And instead of just making gameplay videos as everyone else was doing, that's unscripted, you just hit record and do whatever, I really try to push myself and learn to edit and also practice my English. So I made news videos for the most part, where everyone else was doing like 15-20 minute videos. I try to compress it down into like 2 to 3 minutes and just really pushed myself to essentially do a one take of reading the whole script, which took about 40 takes.
Right.
So yeah, that was quite fun. And then yeah, at some point when was it, like in 6th grade or something like that? So I was 13, 14. I started looking into software development, programming. And at first started out with Visual Basic, just where you can, like, you'd still have to write code, but you can drag and drop the UI. So it was a nice place to start. And I did with my classmate, Carl. So yeah, both of us were just trying out coding for the first time and trying to make tools for ourselves. And I can't even remember exactly what kind of stuff we made, but there was one project for like downloading stuff for Minecraft and installing it automatically. So
I was going to ask that. Does it naturally flow? Does coding naturally flow out of the Minecraft ecosystem?
Because with Minecraft, yeah, there's the modding scene where you're literally writing, like you're modding the game itself, so that's in Java. I didn't do too much of that, but I did try some stuff. And then there's the server side where you're writing simpler logic to run on the server and do like mini games and stuff. And then I guess at some point the game developers also started adding some stuff in the vanilla game, but that was much different from classical coding because it used commands and you had like weird workarounds to get normal programming logic in Minecraft. So yeah, it was quite an interesting one. But yeah, I guess that's what. I'm not sure if that's what got us into coding, but yeah, that certainly played a part.
I see. Well, I can see that you're very comfortable in front of the camera, and you're very comfortable like producing a show and packaging it, just on your YouTube, and that it's all very clear, whether it's your educational stuff or, just marketing your products. It's all, seems like you're very comfortable there. Question about Estonia.
Yeah.
So you're from Tallinn in Estonia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Tallinn, right? Tallinn?
Yeah, Tallinn.
Tallinn, okay. Now, what is the film industry like there? I mean, are there any particular quirks, or is it a case where Estonians go out and look for local content? And do Estonian films make money at the box office? What's the local industry like?
I'm not involved with the local industry that much, but essentially we get about maybe 10-ish feature films a year. And yeah, so that scene is quite small. There's a few companies making the films, plus some indie films here and there. But yeah, there aren't that many, which also means that we don't have any like major post houses. And there's, if we're talking about color, there's maybe like 2-3 colorists for the whole country. And the rest, essentially most movies are color graded by the DPs themselves. So if that's the best thing for the movies, I'd love to.
Authorship, total control. This is my vision, sure.
Essentially, yeah. And also we have a film school, a university, the Baltic Film and Media School, BFM. So that's where most of the filmmakers have gone through, not myself. And what they teach there is also, they teach DPs how to grade. So I guess that's where it comes from. So
yeah, because I mean, in it's not something that I have any experience with. Even like prior to me actually looking at the map, if you'd asked me if Tallinn was closer to Prague, that end of Europe, or closer to Helsinki, I would have said definitely Prague, definitely. I would have sworn my life on it, right? And got it wrong, right? So yeah, it's like, I think people who live outside of Europe don't actually know the intricacies of where all the countries are and things like that. So anyway, it was very interesting. I mean, this is because I've always been in quote unquote small industries. I'm from South Africa and now I'm in Taiwan, and they're both film industries that kind of tick along, but aren't so, they don't have the scope of development. So I'm sure it's quite similar to what you're in.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
My next question is, I don't know if they play hockey in Estonia, ice hockey, that kind of thing, but they talk about a hockey stick graph is where something suddenly changes on a graph and starts heading up. That's the curve in the hockey stick. Now, from what I hear is your life in the last few years has basically gone through a bit of a hockey stick. I guess it's this coding, this DCTL, this kind of exposure, and to the international industry at large. So can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe what's caused it, and what are your feelings currently?
Yeah, I guess it continues kind of from where I left off with starting coding in 5th or 6th grade. So essentially after that I went to high school with a multimedia direction. That's when I first got my DSLR, and I did some short films and stuff during that, but after it we have a mandatory military service, and that was the 11 months where I could think about what do I want to do. And I was certain that I didn't want to work behind a table 8 hours a day. and even if it's programming, still not my thing. So I like being on set, but it's not my favorite thing. I feel most comfortable behind a computer, and I guess that's what led me at the very end, like the last month of the service, I somehow found color grading and Resolve, probably from just watching YouTube videos and just seeing the before after wipes, and I was like, whoa.
Right.
I've seen those before, mostly for VFX, but I've seen those before, but I've never thought about, you know, how these things are actually done. So that's when I looked into it, found Resolve, because beforehand I started off with Windows Movie Maker for the stop motion, then I went to Camtasia Studio because it had screen recording, then went to Premiere, and then at that point, I finally found Resolve and color grading, and essentially that's what I have been doing ever since. So looked into that, tried to find as many resources as I could, saved up some money, started buying different courses from Dado, from Colin, and some others. Just trying to hoard all information. And I think about half a year or a year in, I at some point found DCTLS. I'm not certain where from, but
it was pretty much, everyone was talking about it. It was,
Yeah, and then I think in terms of learning to code them, well, of course, GitHub for examples from others, but I think, the only course out there at that point was Colin's, that's on Mixing Light. So that helped, though, as someone with a programming background, I was quietly chuckling at the code formatting of Colin, because I could see that while he knows color theory and color science and all of that, he's not a programmer. So that was quite interesting to see.
From the strict side of a programmer, it has its own rigors. Yeah, that's very interesting. Where Colin's coming at it from, he's half artist as well. Very interesting how these various fields combine.
Yeah, and I found that and haven't really looked back since. Made a ton of DCTLs. At some point, made a store, and started selling them. And then I guess lately the newest endeavor I have gone on is Python scripting, because I had done some Python scripting during high school for a job, which is another story. I worked for the local prison, of all things, developed some systems for them. I came back to Python and found the Resolve scripting API, and now I'm doing some stuff with that. So that's really, really interesting as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, people are really, from big facilities to, freelance users, people are really interested in your tools and using them. Any particular challenges that you found, like getting this, let's call it a small business, this kind of finding out needs, writing code, writing DCTL, and then marketing and getting sales? Any particular challenges that you found in that process, or, was it quite fluid?
Mm-hmm. I'd say the biggest challenge is essentially looking back at the tools I've made and finding that I'd love to have actually combined some tools or had a different approach, because at the moment I have, I think, 40 different tools up on my store, and it's a lot. Certain tools probably could be merged. Of course, some features might go, but essentially some tools could be merged. Maybe I could name them differently, or there are certain things that I'd like to do differently, but now that so many people are using them, I feel kind of stuck. So that's one thing. But in terms of daily challenges, if I make a tool, first off, where do I even get the idea? Someone might approach me with a question. Can this be done? Maybe I see a white paper with some new interesting maths that I try to implement,
right.
or I just have a challenge of my own. I'm I find some technique someone's doing, or I have something in my note tree where I go like, okay, well, this is taking a few too many steps to do. So I try and understand what's actually happening behind the scenes in terms of the maths, and then I try to implement it as a DCTL. So and then, well, I have to design the UI. Everything from what sliders do I have and what parameters do I hide from the user. Maybe I combine multiple parameters into one slider. What are the min and max values? What's the default? Is it linear or is it exponential? There's so many different things, and order, not just in terms of the UI, but also for panel users, because mini panel users only see the first 7 sliders without flipping the page. So there's so many different things to think about in terms of usability as well.
Wow. So you've also engaged the hardware implementation. That's amazing. I mean, just to take a slight little turn here. I remember you spoke about the topic I'm heading for here is code to solve problems, writing code to solve problems. And could you tell us just briefly about this? I don't know if it's a robot or if it's a script or what it is that controlled the live vision mix of a musical performance. Can you just tell us through that? Because that seems like, it's part mad scientist, but part super useful and practical.
Oh yeah, that was quite a mad scientist moment where, I also work at a high school. I graduated. So far I haven't gone to uni, so that's the high school is all I have. And I went back to work there as IT support, IT support on paper. For the most part, really, what I'm doing is mentoring the multimedia students and giving some optional lessons for them in terms of DaVinci and also practical filmmaking on sets and stuff. But the school is also very much known for its events, including the year's biggest event of Playbox, where it's for classes, I think 7 till 12, 10, 11, 12 is the high school, ending up with 18, 19-year-olds. And literally we take the sports hall, because it's the biggest room we have, and we put down carpet, we build a stage, trussing, lights, everything, including pyrotechnics. It's a festival level thing inside as a high school sports hall. So it's quite a thing. And for that, I have been responsible for the live stream for a good couple of years. And I like editing. I'm not the best with doing it live, with directing all the camera operators and switching between the cameras live, because I know I could get a much better result with editing. So I looked at Eurovision, which is the biggest music TV show, you could say, or event that is broadcast. And how do they do it? Well, they use a piece of software. I think it's QPilot. It was QPilot. Now I think they're using something else. But essentially, a piece of software where you edit the whole thing beforehand, based on the rehearsals, and then I'm not sure if they just let it play out and it switches them automatically, or if the one switching is still a person, but at least the camera operators have it on the screen what they should do, when they should do it, for how long. So that's the idea.
Yeah, with the cue lights, say you come on in 5 seconds, and zoom in, tilt out.
Like a countdown, come in 15 seconds and do a zoom in from this to that. That kind of stuff, or track this person, or So I looked at that, and I think it was the Monday. It was Monday of the same week where the event was on Friday, and I went like, "Oh, I don't have too much to do this time because I had graduated, I had finished military, so I was no longer a part of the main organization group, because the students are organizing it, even all the building of the stage and stuff. So I had a bit of free time, and I figured, well, I'm responsible for the live stream. I can't do much beforehand except just look at the rehearsal recordings and take some notes, or I could try developing a whole system where at that point, I think I had to write the cues just in Notepad with the timestamps and stuff, but I made the initial version for that Friday, and it worked. And it worked so well.
So it's like a paper card, like a paper reader that comes through, like click, 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 and initiate event 7, event 8, event 9.
But already that year, the operators had their phones above the camera, and they could see with a countdown what they'll have to do next. And then I improved on that system the following year, which was last November. So yeah, and I made it where they have a timeline going at the bottom, nice countdowns during being on air, and also I made DaVinci Resolve integration. So now I could take the rehearsal into Resolve. I made a multicam with just text, left cam, right cam, wide cam, middle cam, all of these things, including a moving gimbal, because one of the guys was running around, and then I just edited it in my mind. Well, imagining how the different angles would look like, because all I had was a GoPro recording of the whole rehearsal. And then, I exported that into the system. And during the final rehearsal, did some tweaks here and there. And that was that. So I pre-edited the whole thing in Resolve and just hit play. No, I didn't even have to hit play. I had timecode integration. So it all just worked automatically. And in theory, I could have just sat back and enjoyed the show. So that was a ton of fun to make. Yeah, because I've heard from other coders in the color space that I'm quite a lazy person actually, and the reason why I did all this work was because in the future I want to be really lazy and I want things to be so. Yeah, it's this. I'm gonna kill myself now to be lazy in the future. Yeah.
It's like the robot. The robot vacuum cleaner on steroids.
Yeah, essentially, because I did so much work, like 50 to 100 hours of just coding to make this system work. So I wouldn't have to hit between the cameras. I didn't have to move faders on the audio board for like the audience mics versus the music versus the announcers or graphics. That was also automated. So essentially, as much as I could, just try to automate every single thing so I could just sit back and monitor the system to make sure that there were no errors. That's amazing. As programmers say, why do it in 30 minutes if you can automate it in 3 hours? Because next time it's 10 seconds.
Repeatable, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we pivot slightly to I don't know how it's developed. Maybe you could share that as well. But you seem to have a relationship now with Resolve. You seem to be teaching at their events, kind of leading some of the DCTL how-to workshops and that. Just tell us a bit about that relationship, how it developed and where you see it going.
In terms of teaching DCTLs or doing some beginner workshops and stuff like that. Yeah, so I became a certified DaVinci Resolve trainer quite early on in terms of my color grading career. And from there, I did all the certificates. First, if you become a trainer, you have to do the beginner's guide certification. And then from there on, you can branch out and do the editor's guide, the colorist guide, the fusion, and the Fairlight. So I did all of those as quickly as I could, probably within a year, which each one is like a 20-hour online course,
right?
At the end of which you have to do an exam. So I did all of those, and from there, at some point, I was introduced to the US training manager, I guess we can call him Clark, who, took me under his wing and offered me to help out with some of the online classes they're doing. I've helped with many colorist editors and probably 1 or 2 beginner's guides, where I'm just in the Q&A section of the Zoom meeting answering questions, because if you have like 200 to 300 students, there's going to be a few questions. Doing that. And then at some point, Colin offered me the chance to try and do the DCTL beginners workshop. That's like a 2 or 3 hour workshop that he had done many times, and I tried doing it. It went well, and I'm still doing it.
Yeah, still doing it. Great.
So yeah, and now I've also done a single Python scripting workshop. So yeah, I'm doing these small workshops here and there and helping out with the bigger courses, which is a ton of fun.
Yeah, I mean, how, I guess for operators, but just obviously for educators, but how essential do you feel that the Resolve training is? And, you know, did it make a big difference to you, like pre and post, like your colorist skills or just your general view of the software?
I think personally, I'm very much a self-learner. So by the time I was actually doing the training courses and stuff, I knew most of it. But I think for beginners, the courses that Blackmagic does for free are great. They're a great start. They give you the basics. And like, even though that's the beginner's guide, I'd say the beginner's guide is very basics, like the bare minimum anyone should know of Resolve. And then the colorist guide it isn't advanced. It's like intermediate, where if you do it, then you know almost what everything does on the color page, how to conform and stuff like that. But it doesn't, none of the courses really teach you that much methodology. They focus on the software. Because, well, they are DaVinci Resolve courses, not necessarily a color grading course or a VFX course. So,
yeah, I mean, also their client base is very wide, so it would be hard to hit all the.
Yeah,
they just need to tell you, how it works. Yeah, but I mean, generally, you seem, obviously, I've said before, you seem comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah.
But I mean, this kind of role of educating, and as an educator, do you see that as maybe one of the main lines that you pursue in the future? Because you had this basis in everything you've done in the high school is really in this guise of film training and everything. So you seem on that track already. I mean, do you see that as something that will get more and more?
Well, I think as a very important part of teaching is doing it as well. Actually working in the industry, not just trying to teach something. Because if you're just a teacher, the stuff you're teaching is going to be out of date in 2 years. Some of it, at least. So in that sense, yeah, I think teaching is and will be a big part of what I do, but I don't think it will ever be like the main thing I do, because I love making stuff, I love creating in terms of color grading films, in terms of programming, in terms of all of that, but also I love teaching, so it's never going to be one or the other. I see myself doing both sides.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. It's really your on-the-job experience which gives the teaching depth. And if you're not boosting that side, then the teaching will presumably it kind of dries up over time.
Yeah. And for the past like half year, maybe a bit more at this point, I've also started doing mixing light insights. So that's also been quite fun, because it's, I think, the first series of insights that are on scripting, on programming. So yeah, trying to teach how to use Python to automate stuff. For more people.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to touch back on this again when I dive into DCTLs in a bit, but seems like Resolve is really wanting, obviously they want to get people into coding, but also this what you've just mentioned now, this kind of Python scripting, that's always seemed like a very abstract thing which hardly any people tackle. Yeah. You need a certain skill base. So are they trying to actively get that out? More people using it?
Well, I don't think necessarily, because like Python scripting, first and foremost, I think is for companies where you just have a lot of throughput and you have to make every single piece of the puzzle as efficient as possible. So that's where Python really shines, because if you have a single project or you have 2 projects, 3 projects a month, then each project probably is going to be very different. And in that sense, there isn't a ton of workflow you can automate if every project is different. But if you're a post house, you have a certain way of doing things. And especially if maybe you have a TV series or something like that, where literally you're doing the same thing 10 times, 20 times, 50 times, then that's the place where you can automate it. So I don't think there's necessarily a push from Blackmagic to teach this stuff to a wider audience, but I have. But then again, seeing that they have allowed me to do the beginner's guide to Python scripting workshops, and then also I'm doing the mixing light stuff, I guess, at least myself, I am trying to push Python scripting to a wider audience, because I think it's really useful. But it's a thing where there aren't that many things you can just buy right off the shelf and use. You have to make things for your workflow.
Right. I mean, I guess just in terms of the competition, in terms of other software tools, that maybe is one of the unique selling points of Resolve, over and above node-based instead of layer-based, all those kind of things. But yeah, it's got these two areas where you can do your own scripting and you can, go wild. So yeah, I understand totally why. But okay, if we just look at your tool set, so you said roughly 40 tools.
Yeah.
I must say, just as a comment on, if I look at it as a range of products on a shelf, I think your the cohesiveness and the style that you've put into like the logo design and just how it looks as a box, a product to go and reach out and buy. I think it's done very well. Have you done all your own design? Is it all a one-man show, or have you?
Yeah,
okay.
It's all one-man show, and I do have to say it's difficult, because I feel like the website isn't quite what I want it to be. There are many areas that could be improved upon, because I really focus on the tools themselves and then do essentially the bare minimum for the manuals, the logo design. The store itself is just an off-the-shelf solution, and then, the YouTube videos, where I don't even have YouTube videos for every single tool. I do some videos, some update videos in batch with like 4 or 5 tools, then then I've done separate videos for the most popular tools. But then again, most of those videos have gone out of date since, so it's a lot of work to run it as a one-man show. But I guess I like having control.
Yeah. Well. I mean, it's the nature of this internet society that we're in. It's all like one person companies doing these things. Just in terms of the actual tools themselves, it seems like your focus has it's kind of the tools are more. It's like a look development kit. Do you see that as the main tool, the section? I know you do have some other tools, but am I correct in saying it really is a look development suite?
Yeah.
Are there other sections too? Or?
First and foremost, I've designed the tools for look development. So there are so many tools that I have made for look development that other people have just found really useful shot-to-shot for fixing some problems and stuff. So while that's the idea behind most of the tools, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't be useful shot-to-shot. And then there are some utility DCTLs just to find errors or false color stuff, different on-screen guides, all of that stuff. And then recently, one of the newest DCTLs is also my first endeavor into really focusing on the shot-to-shot, which is the corrector DCTL, which is just taking a bunch of different primary tools and some overlays like false color, and just putting everything into a single tool while also having a ton of customizability, because while I maybe like using linear gain for balancing an exposure, someone else might prefer offset. So I've given the users a ton of options in that tool.
Yeah, I've taken a look. I think it's really great. I think it's how do you see? I mean, it's hard to tell, obviously, because a need arises and you try and you write something to fill that need. But how do you see this developing? 5 years, 10 years? I mean, okay, just speak in grand terms, could this all become a whole standalone color correction system? Or do you feel that the modularity is part of the charm and it will always just stay little bits? I mean, is there a master plan? Do you see it growing into something?
I don't think I'll be making my own Resolve anytime soon, though people like joking about, horrors Resolve. But I think what I hope will happen is that Blackmagic Design will give more flexibility in terms of DUI design, maybe being able to map different controls on the panels to DCTLs, because at the moment you're really only limited to a small set of knobs that, are meant to control effects that you open up, you change a bit, and then you go back to your big trackballs. But that's not the use case I'm using DCTLs for, and what other people are starting to use them for more and more. So I really hope, we get more flexibility in those terms, and also that we get better support for spatial things. Because currently, you can't really do halation and blurring and MTF and all of that stuff efficiently. You technically can do it, but it's really inefficient, and there's no way you're getting real-time playback with that. So.
And is this because you don't have a buffer, right? You don't have a frame buffer, or
you're working
like
pixel by pixel. Within one pixel, you can reference other pixels, but then you start working on the next pixel, and all of that work is gone. So,
no memory.
I
mean, do you feel like you're reaching the ceiling of what DCTL can do?
Up to a certain point. I'd say the ceiling is mainly coming up in terms of the spatial stuff, because there's so much that's still unexplored with the current capabilities, just in terms of color science itself. But in terms of spatial stuff, that's the main limitation, and then the controls. Because I think one of the first ones to bring emojis into DCTL labels, just to make it easier to use. And now they're everywhere. And then at some point we got an update to Resolve that broke it on mini panels. So now everyone has to offer an icons and no icons version. So it's a cat and mouse game in those terms, where I try to find something that can make it easier to use, improve the UI within the limited capabilities that Blackmagic has given us. And then something might break because it's not officially supported, or that's not how they expected us to use them. Yeah, I mean,
just to, you hinted at it now, but I'd just love to see either a visual picture or the actual room at Blackmagic where they compile the code. And just thinking that all the little functions and things that have to stay intact from version to version. I just, this process of shepherding a massive software feature that is actually 5 packages all in one now. It must be a mammoth task. I'd love to see behind the curtain and see how they do that.
Yeah.
But okay, I mean, let's just be critical for a moment here and say, maybe if you could just give us a list of what the limitations of DCTL currently are, and then looking at Resolve critically, is it an area where they're giving us some freedom, but they intentionally throttling it a little bit because they don't want it to start overshining the built-in tools? Do you see that is, I mean, maybe that's conspiracy thinking, am I overthinking it here, but is it something that they're going to keep a lid on, or do you see it opening up more and more?
Funnily enough, I two sides. First, I have actually created a forum post on the Blackmagic forums about my main feature requests. So I'll just quickly list those off.
Let's hear it.
So I guess the first what moment for me was the UI elements. You can reorder them only within each control type. So you always first have float sliders, then int sliders, then I think value input boxes, then drop downs, then checkboxes. They're always in the same order, in the same groups. But what if, in terms of usability, it would make sense to have like a category of a float slider and a checkbox, and then the next tool would have, or the next part of the tool would have another slider, and a drop down. You can't do that. So just reordering UI elements completely customizably. That's the first thing. And then, grouping UI elements just to have a certain layout or collapsible parts. Then tooltips, where if you hover over a thing, you could give a small description of what it does, because currently we're relying on either just having really clear labels, but you can only do that up to a certain part. You can't put a long description in there. It has to be short. So a tooltip would be really great. Then being able to map to the color panels, because again, we're stuck with the knobs up top, and it's really difficult to grade like that. So being able to map to the trackballs or remapping some other knobs that are closer to the operator would be great. And finally, some extra UI elements and the spatial buffer that I talked about. So those, it's a lot of UI and usability, and then a bit of the spatial stuff and the functionality. Because other than the spatial stuff, like the code itself and the functions we have, it works great.
It's not a conspiracy, it's just a work in progress. So let's be positive.
So maybe, and this is a conspiracy, maybe Blackmagic is like not prioritizing implementing panel customizability because, well, they want you to use the built-in tools and just possibly, like, if they added that, people would just, a certain amount of people might ditch a lot of the built-in tools and just go for the custom tools and then start asking for more and more and more and more and more. So maybe it could possibly get out of hand in that direction. But then again, who knows?
Yeah,
it would be very
I'd say by and large, we're lucky that the panels they have put out are good quality.
Absolutely.
You may disagree with the price, but at least the feel and everything is better than a tangent panel, even though, and they've intentionally hobbled the tangent implementations just so that the people buy the hardware. The whole move from the $1 million Resolve hardware specific suite to the was 1,000 US, then 300 US.
Yeah,
that's all on the back end of a hardware company.
Yes.
So I think in the bigger picture, it's been a great, it's been the democratization explosion of color correction.
Yeah, the panels are great, and also talking about the panels, I've modded my panel. I've used 3D printing to essentially, because currently I don't use the trackballs at all. I just took them out, because you can take them out for cleaning. Well, I left them out, and I've 3D printed just some plates to put on top, so I wouldn't accidentally go against them while using the DCTLs with the knobs up top. And I extended the knobs.
Isn't it a perfect coffee cup holder? Once it's empty, you can just slot your coffee in there.
That's another use case.
3 flavors.
I'll make different inserts, like coffee cup holders and pencil holders.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when 5 o'clock comes along, it's the martini/beer.
Yeah, there you
go. Okay, so just to give you just some, like, call it user feedback. I'm not much of a DCTL or LUT or the latest greatest fad. Obviously I do use things, I do follow trends, but I find that there's a gravity in what I do, that I might get interested in a certain tool, affected by a certain tool, but I always gravitate. If I can then find a way to implement that function in the inbuilt tools, I always gradually shift back to that. So that's kind of, obviously, because I've been doing this for 30 years, and I really, older school colorists are more lift gamma gain, everything's lift gamma gain, and then just with some other things on top. But yeah, I mean, just from that point of view, I think even if, you know, I'm not sitting there buying your tools month to month, I do appreciate what it is, you know, this process of inquiry and this process of development. It definitely does reflect back on the way we look at the existing tools. So great. It's all like changes that are good in the industry.
I'm not the marketing guy who goes out and says that, yes, everyone has to have this tool. It's mainly where, yeah, I've made the tools for myself or for people who have requested them. And if someone else finds them useful, and judging by the sales, it seems people do, great. But at the end of the day, I'm just solving a problem for myself that I'd love to, you know, do differently, do more efficiently. So yeah.
Something for me has been that, you know, it's compared to the early days when I started out in the mid-90s grading on telecines, essentially color management wasn't something we had accessible. So just this whole, especially in the last 5 years, how the tools have changed, how the knowledge has expanded, and how color management has, you know, the hood's been lifted. We now see what's going on. And obviously there's a phase of analysis, and people are looking at the underlying assumptions, and some people saying it's bullshit, some people... we seem to be in an era now where it's quite acceptable of people who are, regarding input transforms and display transforms, it's like they're rolling their own, they're designing their own, and, you know, the standard ones are like not good enough or causing problems and things like that. Lots of different opinions. But as someone who knows more about what's going under the hood in terms of maths and in terms of color processing, do you feel that in terms of behavior, there are major issues with what we consider now as bulk standard, you know, display transforms or input transforms?
No, I think the major discussion point today, at least in the communities I tend to be in, is the different color models that tend to be marketed as perceptually uniform and whatnot, where the thing is, we perceive colors within context, so you can't actually make a perceptually uniform model that's uniform in every context. So that's the main thing. And if those models are used in transforms that are meant to be objective, so well, when going from a larger space to a smaller space, essentially display rendering transforms, as many know them as, you can't really be objective. We can try to be more objective with the input transforms for cameras, trying to match certain colors, though even there are certain assumptions being made.
And you gain some benefits, but because of your assumptions, you make sacrifices.
Yeah. So we're always trying to find a balance. The camera manufacturers are trying to find a balance, and then in terms of color management, whether we're using resolves, CSTs, whether we're using ACEs, or whether we're using some third-party transforms. For example, at the moment, I'm using Pablo's 2499, which is giving me so far the best results, just getting me the closest to what I want to achieve. Because otherwise I just have to start fixing certain problems with either my DCTLs or some other tools, but in this case the DRT does most of the work for me. So yeah, there can be certain problems with the widely used transforms, but then again, we have to have something that's good enough. The image either looks good or it doesn't at the end of the day, even though maybe the maths in there isn't 100% sound or isn't 100% correct. You know, if it looks good, we're fine.
Yeah, and it seems to be like a widespread trend, whether you look at like the redesign and update of ACES heading towards ACES 2.0, or as you mentioned, the amazing Jones 2499 or Open DRT and all these other things. It's, you know, it's really just, I don't know, some people might find it upsetting, some people might just ignore it, but the fact that there's that level of discussion going on, I think it's very, very inspiring.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that we don't get stuck on a single system. Like, at the moment, what's happening, as far as I can see, as I'm not really in the big industry, I'm doing my own thing and helping out, but what I see is that mainly what's used today is ACEs. And what I'd encourage is for people to understand color management better and as such be able to adapt to different display transforms, different working spaces, while still, using the general color management idea.
Yeah, definitely in the use case of a global production that's going to be, farming out to different effects houses, having many stages. Yeah, totally. I think it's...
Yeah, so it should be just another choice at the beginning of a project. It's not that we have to work in ACEs. It's like, okay, what working space are we using for this project? All of the, the colorists know it, the DP, all the VFX guys, everyone knows that, okay, for this project, we're working in this. Yes, at first it might create more confusion in terms of like if people are used to doing ACEs, but I think at the end of the day, it should be a choice. We should not be stuck with a single option just because that's what happened to be the standard at the time.
I think it was part of one of Danielle's topics is that color, he was arguing slightly in reverse against the trend of saying that everything's broken, everything's wrong. He was saying it's actually good that we use broad, very linear kind of things to do our color transforms. It's just a simple linear triangle, and sure, creatively you might want to do some non-linear transform, like reducing high saturations, increasing low saturations, or, or maybe moving the luminance of certain saturations, complex things. That becomes the creative side. But the underlying mechanics of what we would say just the technical transforms should be really, really, really simple. But yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, the depth of my knowledge is, I have an interest, but the core understanding is obviously a couple of, decimal places away from, the people at the cutting edge who are actually developing it. But anyway, I find it really fascinating.
Yeah, in that sense, Daniel's way of thinking about it is another way of doing it. And, we just don't want to get stuck with a single organization controlling the way we do things. We want to, have the flexibility. And yeah, that's one methodology to work on or work with.
I mean, in terms of the maths that you generally use under the hood, maybe it's not always transparent what Resolve natively is using, but is that really one of the big differences between your tools and what's going on in Resolve, essentially the color spaces that you use?
There's two things. For certain tools, a certain set of my tools are color space aware, let's call it. Really, currently none of my tools work with primaries in terms of changing the gamut, but the color space aware tools of mine are working around middle gray. They work around middle gray, whether that's the pivot point of contrast or whether it's just targeting an area of the image relative to middle gray and stops. But yeah, that's the color space aware parts of my tools. And that's one difference that many tools in Resolve are from an age where, color management wasn't as much of a thing, if at all. And the color space aware tools are a newer thing in Resolve. So yeah, I'm trying to just create more options for that. And then the other side is, which color model I choose to use. So for tools that either change the hue or qualify the hue, saturation, or luminance, I tend to go for a spherical model. But Resolve can, depending on the tool, use HSL, HSV, or some other third model. So yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's almost like waves moving through the community. I mean, at one stage, I guess 5-6 years back now, LAB was the talk of the town, transferring internet. I mean, is something like Chen spherical? Is that the kind of the current wave?
That's what I'm using in almost all of my tools. That's like the default I reach out for. And if I need something else, then yeah, I can go for something else. I have a huge library of functions pre-made for all kinds of different color models and all the transfer functions and a lot of stuff. But yeah, typically I tend to go for Chen's spherical model.
I mean, I do find it very fascinating because when you're actually manipulating an image, as an operator, as a colorist, you think, okay, I've just got to use the tool in a different way. I've just got to shape my curve differently to attack the input signal differently. But you know what you're saying is it's totally a thing. You're going to redefine the ground on which I'm working. You're going to redefine the shape and everything, and the behavior, the interactivity, the feedback feeling of the tool that I'm working with. So yeah, I mean, from that sense, it's a huge game changer.
Yeah, it's just about trying the different color models and seeing what gives you either the best result or gets you the result you want quickest. So yeah.
Yeah. And you know, people talk about smoothness, not breaking the image, being a very important factor, yeah, especially with secondary manipulations. I mean, can you tell us how you would approach that? I mean, because from what like this, looking on the sideline and listening to people talk about it, it's all about finding functions, choosing functions. Do you feel like that area, especially relating to smoothness, is that pretty much tied up? Have we got all the functions we need, or is that really an area where there's lots of growth and discovery?
It's still very easy to make mistakes in terms of like, when does the image break? It tends to break either when you stretch something out too much or when you create folds. You put things that were next to each other to the other side. So essentially, that's
right. Non-linear behavior.
Yeah, those are
behavior.
The main cases where you have breakage, and well, of course, like negative stuff and other errors as such can cause breakage. But like in terms of things that may seem valid, but can actually cause breakage in the image is stretching stuff too much and creating folds. So yeah, and in those terms, how I tend to go about things, it's just broader is better. For all the qualifications that I have pre-made for the user, for example, of my 6-vector tools, that, well, it seems Blackmagic is also a fan of. So with Resolve 19, I guess they saw what the community had been doing and decided to implement something similar. So yeah, with those, I've tried
to essentially just widen the slice that they were using, right?
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, they are all qualifiers in one way or another. And I've just tried to make the hue qualifications as wide as possible. Also look at pixels that are very unsaturated, very close to the gray line, where I disqualify them from the qualification just to make sure that, if the tool is unsure if this pixel is actually this color or it's that color, just don't move it or move it less. Just broader is better and be really easy on the image. Plus, I'm limiting the range of actually the modification, where I don't give the user the ability to push for example, the hue 180 degrees, because in that case, there's a pretty good chance you're creating faults.
It is broken, yeah.
Even though if someone pushes the tools, there technically is still a way to break the image with many tools, but I'm trying to limit it as much as possible.
Right, yeah, and under the pressure of a job, you might pull the slider a bit too far.
Yeah.
But the tool's got its own safety built into it. I mean, just to I don't know. Let's call this section the gossip, the
Yeah.
DCTL development gossip. I mean, surely there are good ways to do it and bad ways to do it. I mean, what I've heard is that it looks like a DCTL, it's got sliders, and you assume it's some maths being applied live, but actually just it's a LUT sitting inside that DCTLE, which you can't encode a DCTL. I mean, are there any just generally bad practices that you've encountered and that you'd like to highlight? You know, just like, because in this the domain of we're saying clean is better, no faults, this general broad smooth.
Yeah, I guess one thing is like mismarketing something. What a personal thing I don't like, which isn't as much a technical problem, but mismarketing things as like a magic slider that does this and that, but really it's probably quite a simple operation under the hood that you could just have named that. So yeah, just naming the different UI controls really clearly is like my main thing, and then not thinking about color management or not thinking about where middle gray sits when we're talking about all kinds of contrast related DCTLs. Also, I love seeing that in there. The drop down for the different transfer functions. But in terms of technical stuff, there are many things there's many bad practices in terms of the specific maths you can use, where just if you let the user push the image too far and create faults and stuff, well, then that's a problem. And the only way as a user you can really tell is by taking a test image where you just have like a gradient of different hues or a single hue and a saturation gradient, just different kinds of gradients, and testing the tool, just trying to push it and seeing how it looks like on the vector scope, how it looks actually on the image itself, and then just also trying it on all kinds of different footage you have laying around, just to see how far you can push things, if it creates problems. Trying very saturated images, maybe you have problems there. Trying different ODTs, if you use different ODTs or rendering transforms, trying those. Maybe your rendering transform is actually fixing a few issues that you might have under another one. So yeah, just really testing all of your tools is my main suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like having getting to understand DCTL, what the syntax is, writing it up, working out what the maths you would need to implement something, that's all kind of level one. But to make it a useful tool, a marketable tool, you actually have to take the second step. We spoke about smoothness, all those preserving the neutral axis, all that kind of thing. But then I guess it's stuff like try and discourage things going negative or below zero, just like, pixels flying off to infinity and beyond.
Yeah, so at the same time, in certain cases, you might not want to have things go under zero, but in other cases, maybe if you have, like a very simple example, just a contrast curve, maybe just linear contrast, you don't want it to clamp below zero and above one. You still want to have the signal after using the tool. So it can go both ways.
Right. Okay. Excellent. I mean, just as a general issue, like, do you find it easy backpropagating from a problem that a user has or that you come up with and you find a creative problem? Do you find it always an easy process to backpropagate into a mathematical solution and then coding for that? Or is that a really hard is that a difficult stage to get through, to actually work out what the math that will solve this problem is?
It very much depends on the problem. Yeah. It very much depends on the problem, because with some tools, I might actually not understand the maths completely, where I have seen like either a white paper or it's just some well-known maths, but I don't personally know every single intricacy of it. And in that case, it can be difficult, where the fix might actually not be fixing the formula, but doing something before or after it. But in other cases, yeah, it can be quite a clear solution that just pops out immediately. That totally depends on the exact case.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank heavens for things like Desmos that can visualize visualize these things as an intermediate stage. Okay. I mean, this is less of a question. It's more, I don't know, customer feedback, or just like maybe it's different methodologies of different eras. But I can see that some of the functionality that you've brought into your tools is things like the highlight modes. And sure, highlighting keys, that highlighting selections, that's always been essential. But just in operationally, I found these, whether it's, the skin highlights, the grayscale highlight, or just, you have some tools which highlight whether something's on the neutral axis. I find that there's something about those tools, and maybe it's something that you could address in implementation, but it seems like when you switch that tool on, in some way, it ruins your eyes for a few minutes. And it's like a very powerful taste would mess up like if you have something really sweet, and then after that for 5 minutes, you actually can't discern like a subtle taste. So my current feeling, I don't use those tools on jobs, but I was wondering if you could maybe remedy the situation, or if you've got some insight as to, is there a way that it's almost like I'd use those tools when I'm on my own, but if the client's sitting next to me and I'm switching that highlight mode on and off, it's almost like I'm drawing on his image with a luminous highlighter. You know what I mean? It's like a funny, it's a feeling I have. It's kind of how we respect the images, especially when the clients are around, and I don't know. Just a feedback.
There's two possible solutions for that. Well, the main limitation is that with DCTLs we only have one pipeline. In terms of, we can output one image, we can take in one image, and that's all we get. So any UI that's not natively supported, which all the UI we have is the sliders and checkboxes and stuff, is going to be drawn on the image, not on the UI. And as such, all kinds of graphs, the highlight modes for like from false color to neutrals to whatnot, to qualifications, that's all going to be on the UI. So that's the limitation. In terms of possible solutions, one way is for me to change how I display the qualification. I could have like a client mode where it's much more subtle. It's just very, very barely, showing it. But then again, at that point, it raises the question of, is what's being displayed clear enough? Does it serve its purpose? So the other possibility, if the tool is a separate one, like the checkers, which doesn't modify the image but just displays info in a certain way, then what you could do is, if you have, probably the easiest would be Omniscope, then you can just create a separate pipeline that doesn't go out, but it goes into the Omniscope input, the OFX, and what I have is, I have actually two inputs into Omniscope, both the OFX and a loopback via my deck link, where I can have the master image on the deck link input, but then from the OFX I can feed, well, one thing is the different checkers, or the other thing is I have made a pipeline to view an RGB cube, to view my look on an RGB cube without it
prior to the display transform, right?
Yes, prior to the display transform, but after the clip modifications, so I'm only seeing the post-clip group look, and I don't see the cube on screen. So I'm blanking out that area. So yeah, it's quite a workflow, but yeah, there are certain ways of doing it, but yeah, it's a limitation with DCTLs that we don't have a separate pipe to have UI on that isn't displayed on the client display. And there isn't a single great solution for that, unless you have some suggestion.
Yeah, no, that was just really interesting. I mean, I guess it's also an age thing. I think Robbie and Joey also spoke about on their podcast about this concept of a skin tone line. I mean, that was for lining up the color phase on NTSC and PAL signals. That never was a skin tone line. Now, the fact that it's been called one recently is it's news to me, kind of thing. But yeah, that's just different phases. But it's all under the banner of things getting better, and things getting more accessible and more versatile tools. So I'm for it. Just a kind of from an old fuddy-duddy, a feeling.
No, but totally, like having, for example, with the skin tone indicator, having like yellow and green and magenta patches on your image. The one thing is it looking unprofessional, possibly to the client, but the other thing is, your vision has memory. So it's the same thing. Why we don't, keep on one frame or one clip for a minute or 2 or 3 minutes, but we try to, make our corrections in 15-20 seconds and then move on, and prefer having multiple passes to spending half an hour on a single shot. So same thing goes with that. If you turn it on, your eyes get used to these weird colors, and then when you turn it off, for the moment, you're seeing the colors differently on the image because of the memory.
Yeah. Well, the worst case would be is if you start missing it once it's gone, and then you start grading in that direction.
Yeah. But the idea is that you just use, at least how I intended tools to be used, is just that you, with the checkers, you just use it on your first pass where you get it in the ballpark, and then the second, third pass, you're already just working with the image itself.
Yeah, so. you're clean. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, just to pivot slightly to like a broader topic of technology versus artistry. I mean, you grade your jobs. I mean, can you tell us a bit about some of the the work that you're doing at the moment? Features or any interesting jobs that you've got coming in? So we're putting down your color science development hat and going into the actual hands-on colorist. How are things going there?
Yeah. Currently, I'm still in the beginning phases of actually doing coloring jobs, just because I guess I haven't gotten my name out there yet. And I've done a few music videos. I did my first local, I guess we could call it an indie feature, which was quite a bit of fun to do. It had very, very long shots. So that was also an interesting challenge.
Lots of dissolves and dynamics, right?
Yeah, a lot of dissolves, keyframing, stuff like that. That was an interesting one. And then the main thing I do just to have something to grade, and every now and then I get something that looks really good, is my own high school students' short films. Because I let them grade some stuff, but if they feel like, if they've shot it really well and they just want to get the best out of the footage, I also offer to grade some of their stuff. So that's also quite a bit of fun, because some of them are really good, actually.
Excellent. Well, yeah, it's great to have this, important to just have this constant flow of challenges coming in, and then that just builds up your experience. I mean, just in that balance, we're saying you color jobs, you also do this tech side, you've got a relationship developing with Blackmagic in terms of training, in terms of all this kind of thing. I mean, what do you see your ideal job in the future? I mean, how would you square all these circles? If it was up to you totally, where would you see yourself?
I guess essentially where I'm at the moment, just more, where I'd love to have the color grading jobs as kind of the constant in the background, just that I do on a regular basis, and then every now and then a certain request comes in for like helping automate some workflows for a company, or the DCTL stuff, where I just have these separate projects every now and then, but the main constant is the color grading, and then also I guess teaching with be it mixing light, be be it Blackmagic or the high school or somewhere else. So yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So you're on the right path already. Excellent.
Yep.
Okay, just to backtrack a little bit, did you use your own tools on your feature? Yes. Right?
At this point,
Wall to wall.
yes, at this point, the only things that are not my own in the node tree are the input transforms.
The subtitles, yeah.
Or the input transforms. No, the subtitles are DCTLs. The input transforms are CSTs. The output transform is the 2499. And then stuff like scatter for emulating filters, and filmbox for its halation and grain. And that's about it. Everything else, the whole look, I have my own node tree with like 10 or 15 of my DCTLs. So yeah, I do the look there, and then for the shot-to-shot, I use my corrected DCTL, and that's how I work.
Yeah, because you've got the shot-to-shot balancing thing now. That's excellent.
Yeah.
In some part of your role is almost, just this is more like how you interact with people on forums, and then taking that a problem arises and you might go and write some code and come back and solve the problem. Do you have an idea of, in terms of working colorists, what do you think their weak points are? I mean, is it just that they don't have enough maths and physics and they don't know how to link it into, or what the tools are actually doing under the hood? Is it simply that? Or, I mean, are there reoccurring issues that you seem to be helping people with?
I think the 3 parts would be, first, not knowing enough about color management or understanding it well enough. And right. I'm not saying they have to know how these things work under the hood, but just know the basics to be able to make good decisions for projects and not just fall back always on what the client says or what they have always done. And if someone, asks them to use some other color management solution for certain projects, they can validate it and know how to use it and how to tackle it in terms of also handing over to VFX and all of that. The second thing is, DCTLs in terms of first knowing how to validate a tool. Both DCTLs and, Resolve Zone tools. They are more sound tools and less sound tools, even in Resolve. So it's good to be able to...
Hell yeah!
It's good to be able to validate them, at least on some basic level. And then based on that, choose which tools to use. Of course, it isn't just about which tool gets you the best result the quickest. It can also be about archiving. Maybe you don't want to use OFX and DCTLs because it's more difficult to archive it.
Especially if they expire.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Okay, but let me give you this situation. The DCTL expires and the creator goes under a bus.
Then you're out of luck. Yeah. So that's because that's why all of my DCTLs are perpetual. They will none of them will ever expire. Or if they will, which is only the case currently for the betas. I have some testers, I have a group of testers, and for them I send out an expiring one. I have it in the name. Always.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you label it, that's excellent.
Yeah, but for the ones I sell out there, all of them are perpetual because of that reason. I don't want anyone to run into a problem either during grading a project going, oh shoot, it expired. Where can I download it now? Or with archiving stuff. You archive, it's difficult enough to archive all of your LUTs and DCTLs and stuff. I don't want them in 10 years to pull the project up and go, oh shit, all of them have expired. Too bad.
Yeah, there's that you can export project and then you can export project with thumbnails. I mean, it should be a third option: export project with all assets,
Yep.
all
Including LUTs
Fusion,
and DCTLs.
fuses in Fusion,
Yep.
DCTLs, LUTs. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, first one, color management. Second one, being able to validate tools and choose great tools and not fall into just marketing with, oh, this is the best tool in the world, use it, even though it can be shit. And the third thing is, knowing when to bring in someone from the outside, be it a color scientist for creating looks and not relying on LUTs all the time, or be it a Python developer. Maybe there's some niche situation where you have to just do a lot of manual work to fix something, but a developer could write the scripts in 10 minutes, and it would save you of the 3, 4, 5 hours of manual labor. So understanding what can and cannot be done just on a basic level with scripting or the color science side when it's a great moment.
As an option, like to solve a certain type of problem. Yeah.
Because I don't expect anyone to have the time and expertise to delve into the color science and into development. It's just good to have a basic understanding and, okay, this is a good point where I could ask someone for help.
I mean, just on the coding community in general, and this, I guess it's the open source debate at large. I mean, you're pretty much in it, where open source, some people are very pro open source and they never end up selling their tools, but they also don't take their tools to the level of polish that you do. So you really do take your tools to a level of polish. You're giving a level of backup. You're giving a kind of a future kind of level of support. I also see that you back propagate features into old tools. So you update tools to some degree. How do you see this? If it's two extremes, the totally open source, everything's free, you can see everyone's working, you can collaborate, you can share, versus for sale, for profit, and that kind of competition. How do you feel what are the pros and cons of those two approaches?
Well, yeah, so I think open source is necessary for developing great and creative tools, because there's only so much a single person can do. But at the same time, we have to make a living somehow. So I find that it's great to have a certain amount of tools completely open source, up on GitHub, for example. And that's mainly for people to get started and to see the different things that can be done with DCTLs. But from a certain level of complexity, just because of the work that has been put in, I see it makes sense to ask for something for it.
Right.
And yeah, because if you put out a really, really good tool, especially if it competes with other tools already on the market for sale, and you put it out for free, well, it's not very nice for all of the people, including myself, whose livelihood depends on the sale of these tools. So yeah, though at the same time, it can push us to develop even better and better tools. So, like there are two sides to it, and both have reasons. So yeah, there's no clear-cut line what can or cannot be done. It's just about trying to be nice to each other, both in terms of not releasing stuff for free that's already on sale, but also in terms of sharing certain things so we can improve our own tools.
Yeah, I guess it's you need this main stem or this main flow of just well understood color science and just general thing, common knowledge. Common knowledge, people can get up to speed quickly using that, call it code libraries or just shared resources. open source things. But yeah, I guess there's a customization. When specific customization or specific groupings occur of certain tools, then yeah, that makes sense. If it's
and also a side with selling tools is that when you release it for free, you release it and usually it's that, yeah, use it at your own risk, do whatever. But as a seller of tools, I also am ready to provide support. If there are bugs, I will respond rather quickly, and all of that. So, and the manuals and everything. So, yeah, there's the tool itself, but then there's everything around it that support, that comes when you buy a tool. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally understandable. I was trying to, in my mind, kind of equate the two to, open source is essentially something linked to academia and research, and then, for for profit is obviously the industry and how people make a livelihood and don't end up saying, I'm just wasting my time in this industry and head off somewhere else where it's a talent that we really need. So yeah, it's an interesting balance to strike, and I see it play out in the community in different ways.
Yeah.
Just regarding online communities, I can see that you're quite active. You also do have your own Discord for tool development. What do you get out of online communities and those kind of interactions? Can you kind of summarize it, or what personal takes do you have?
I guess two things. One is getting help and helping others with developing the tools themselves. And the more technical side in that sense, and other side is just seeing what colorists do, what problems they face, how they like to grade. Maybe I see a workflow that I haven't seen before. It makes me think about, this solves this and that problem that I didn't even realize I had, and that many have, and then a tool might be born out of that, or I just might change my own workflow. So. Yeah, mainly just seeing the users and also getting technical feedback and actual help with developing of tools.
I kind of recently stumbled across this idea after chatting to Thatcher, but a way of framing it was just to say it's almost like interacting on the forum almost keeps you fighting fit.
Yep.
It's just like this constant little check of your, the little attacks coming in, and you kind of bobbing and weaving and solving problems. Yeah, keeping you live and active, solving problems. So,
if someone asks a question from you, you have to think about it. You have to make sure that, the way you approach things, the way you're coding your tools, that it's actually sound. That you're not just doing something out of habit.
Right. Keeping fresh, keeping current. Yeah, totally. Just in terms of your, creative outlets. You already mentioned a whole bunch, like stop frame, Lego, and Minecraft, and coding. Coding for fun, all those kind of things, and obviously film. What other creative outlets do you have, or creative outlets in your personal life that kind of feed your passion for film and things like that?
Other than the things I have named, what else do I have? Well, I've always loved creating things, both virtual and also physical. So yeah, 3D printing and solving everyday problems with 3D printing is something I love doing. I'm also dabbling in electronics. I've made my own home automation system, created some lights out of old LCDs and stuff like that. So that's the thing I do.
On the design side, what do you use for your 3D modeling going into your printing?
3D modeling I do in Fusion 360. So as a teacher, I have the education license, and that's really great to use. I've tried different online solutions as well, but that's what I've kept coming back to.
Right.
And then also I do forum theater, which is quite an interesting one, where it's interactive theater that tackles social problems. Typically where our group is requested to go to schools, and they have a certain problem, be it, the most typical ones are either TikTok addiction, vaping, or just some kind of bullying. And we create a short, 3-scene story out of or around the problem. We go show the scene or the scenes, and
you act it out live.
We
right?
we
It's
act
a
it
live-
out live in front
Yeah.
of in front of the people, all the students and sometimes even some of the teachers, and then we let them discuss the thing, see what they saw, what ideas they get. They vote for a main character, and then we start showing the thing again from scene 1. Except this time, if they feel that the main character they voted for could do something differently in this moment for their life to continue better, they clap. We stop the thing. We ask for their idea. And then they can come and switch out the main character. And from that point forward, it's improv. It's improv, and
Wow.
they can literally try out different options, different possible solutions for a moment in time. And
Wow.
it's really, really interesting to see how different people react to the situations, how they try to solve it. They might try one thing. Okay, that didn't work. Someone else comes, tries another thing. That didn't work, but it started moving some gears. And then the first person might come back, try something different. And, oh, they have figured out a way of maybe breaking through a certain bully character. So it's a ton of fun, but also makes you think about life, and it shows how difficult the life of a student can be and is.
Yeah, infinitely more complicated. A whole mesh of social pressures that I guess we had in very diluted form 20, 30 years ago. That is amazing. Is it essentially a community effort, or is it just like a group of interested people, or is it connected to a actual professional play company?
With Forum Theatre, we have a group of like maybe 10 to 15 people that we get together with once a week, and it's just people from around the local area. None of us are professional actors per se, and then again, the thing we do, maybe it's even good that we're not professional actors, because we don't want to put on a play, we want to show a realistic situation.
I mean, what it speaks to me, because I'm in Taiwan, I'm in Asia, and culturally, one of the big things as a teacher, whether you're formally teaching a lesson or whether you just something more entertainment-wise, it's very hard to get audience reaction. Obviously, Western audiences are more interactive, and different cultures have different standards for that. But yeah, I'd say that's part of the challenge, is to draw students out and get them invested and get them wanting to contribute. Because everyone has opinions. It's just whether they're willing to share them on the day.
Yeah.
Cross that border from being an observer to being a participant.
Yeah, every time. Because we don't go in telling them that this is how things are going to work. No, it comes as a surprise when the first one claps and tells us their idea. The moment we tell them, okay, you can come and try, the whole room just goes silent, and you can just feel the energy. It's really fun.
Cool. I'd love to see it in action. Yeah, I mean, just asking you from the point of view of someone who's getting into their color career. I mean, what I do more and more now is kind of mentoring and teaching people. What are the largest, call it, weaknesses or areas of lacking? I mean, as a young freelancer starting your business, what are the things that you would love to have access to?
I'd say the hardest part for me currently is actually finding jobs. Just finding the clients, because I'd say at this point, yes, I might not have 5-10 years of grading experience, but I do think I know pretty well what I'm doing on the technical level, and I can match shots. So in that sense, it's behind actually finding clients, actually, finding the people to reach out to, knowing how to reach out, and all of that side. So that's, at least for me, the hardest part of being a freelancer, starting out as a freelancer colorist?
Yeah, I mean, that old saying of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Obviously, in our industry, you have to know stuff.
Yes.
When the client actually arrives, you have to know what to do.
And you have to have the equipment as well.
Yeah, and the gear. But yeah, closing that loop. I mean that's, yeah. There's no quick fixes to that. But yeah, it used to be you were employed at a company. They had people to go and find jobs, or there were only 5 companies in the town, and chances are you're going to get 1/5 of the job, and you build a reputation like that. But now it's 500 or 5,000 colorists to choose from. In terms of, you did mention a few already, but in terms of like training resources that you've encountered, or throw the net wider, like experiences that you've had, trade shows you've been to, people you've interacted with that have really been a kind of a adrenaline shot or a boost to your career that you'd highly recommend for others?
The biggest thing that helped me was taking one of Colin's courses, and not the course itself even necessarily, though I'd say Colin's courses are one of the best. Yeah, but the community. Agree. The community you get to be a part of after taking the course is absolutely amazing. I'd say it's one of the best communities, if not the best one out there for colorists. Sharing knowledge,
if
sharing
not,
tools.
Not far from it. Definitely one of the top communities.
And
totally agree.
So that's up there, number one. But other than that, in terms of, I'd say IBC was a nice one, or NAB as the US equivalent. Just being able to meet both other colorists, other people in the filmmaking community, but also the companies, the people behind the companies, behind the products you use. It can be really eye-opening, and you can finally put faces to names you've been interacting with online for a long time. So I'd say those two, finding a community online, and then actually attending some events in person if you have the chance to. Those are the main two that have helped me. Yeah,
totally agree. And just like as a final question, I mean, as part of this, we're practical colorists, or in your case, you're maybe teaching people, you're doing those kind of things, but also this realm that we're in of whether it's artistic image generation, or whether it's new technology, or whether it's the color science, the psychophysical effects of human vision and all those kind of things. I mean, are there any cutting edges in anything of this whole grand film industry that are currently interesting you at the moment? Any black holes that you find yourself at 3 a.m. kind of scrolling through technical papers about?
Well, I guess the main thing currently, at least in the communities I hang out around, is the way of just thinking about color and color science. A great resource is The Hitchhiker's Guide to Digital Color. I recommend reading through that. It's quite a lot, but it just makes you think about the assumptions that have been made along the way in how we work for the most part today with color digitally. And other than that, an interesting one is the fourth primary being tried out on displays. I haven't seen a display myself, but that might, again, maybe possibly add something to not only how images look, but very much it might change how we work with digital images. The question is, are we just going to add on a fourth primary at the very end? Or are possibly camera sensors going to get a fourth primary? And if they do, are we going to have two modes of operation, 3 primary and 4 primary modes? Or are we going to work in a totally different way with the image signal? So, yeah, it's interesting to see where that leads us.
Yeah, in terms of that fourth primary, it seems like we get the feeling that RG and B they're in a balanced place. If you think of it as a circular structure, they're equally far apart from each other. So if you squeeze another one in there, you're almost begging the other 2 gaps to get equally filled and go to 6. or you're asking for the positions of R, G, and B to nudge slightly to allow this new like sibling to come in, and so yeah, it's a very interesting debate. But yeah, you really have to see it, and then the usual problem is your eye might tell you something very different to what a camera is going to, that whole thing.
Yeah, because currently we're just using 3x3 matrices to just kind of shape the camera image to what we're working in, to finally what we'll see on a display. But really, the response, the spectral response of a camera sensor of a single photo site might be very different to the equivalent of the human eye, and we're making assumptions once again, and maybe we'll see a shift in how we work with images. But then again, the shift would require a very, very big change and a lot more bandwidth and stuff. So we'll see where that goes. And also another interesting discussion is HDR. For the longest time, right, HDR was the thing. Everyone wants to do it, and it's the new cool thing. But now we're getting to a point where we start to understand, what are the more sound ways of doing it, and the marketing hype ways of doing it.
Yeah, on that point, I was kind of thinking today, like, what is if you're going to be like really just take a scientific approach and just analyze it, it's like, why did HDR come about? Like, why? And you just dig back. Were people sitting in cinemas like saying, "Oh, this is terrible, I can't stand"? No, of course, we were loving it already. Yeah. But it's a case of like, why is there a space program? Why are we sending rockets? Like, why don't we just stay where we are? It's the human condition all over again.
Yeah, we just want to try new stuff and push stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. On that fourth primary thing, can you imagine the 3 in, 4 out matrices conversions? This kind of set of going into 4 primaries, then back from 4 primaries back to RGB.
Oh god!
It's gonna be a mud fight. I can see it. but that process of going from 3 in things down to 3 dimensions down to 2, that's pretty common in color science already. So presumably it's all under control. But yeah.
Yeah, but going from 3 to 4, and like how you do that, and then you had a question: how different would it look like if we had the whole pipeline from camera to the display with 4 primaries? And yeah, we'll see where it goes. If it's even a thing that will, take over. Maybe it's something that we'll try and we'll go like, yeah, it's not that much better.
Just a phase. I'm over it.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Okay, Kaur, thank you very much. I've taken a lot of your time, but thank you very much for your insights, and I hope we can have many more discussions like this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and let's hope that the next 10 years will be as exciting as the last 10 in this world of digital color.
More on the hockey stick.
Yeah.
Up. Okay, cool, man. Keep well.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye. Thanks again for listening to the Color Mentor podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. You can leave comments on Patreon or Instagram. The Instagram handle is color.mentor. And remember to head over to the Color Mentor page on patreon.com and check out the goodies there. We'll see you next time.